Hello, thank you for joining with me. These are Robert Perry's notes on day 120, section 3 of chapter 8, and day 121, section 4 of chapter 8. I'll just go ahead and read them. Day 120, section 3, freedom of will. This whole section is about Jesus' role in our spiritual journey. As such, I think it is very important. We tend to think of Jesus' role in very grand global terms, and he references some of the Bible verses here that have given us that impression. For instance, I am come a light into the world, John 12:46. I am the light of the world, John 8:12. I have overcome the world, John 16:33, and the Father has sent me, John 20:21. However, the meaning he gives those verses here is far more small scale and personal than how we usually take them. God's will for us is complete peace, but we have stepped outside of his will. We have stepped outside of him and have thereby denied ourselves everything. This has left us feeling cut off and lonely. This is where Jesus' role comes in. For him to come as a light into the world, John 12:46, means that he has come to be with us in the loneliness of the world. What he offers us then is real companionship, which goes against the very nature of a separated world. Yet, of course, he is no ordinary companion. This companion contains within himself all that we have dissociated from in heaven, all the sublime peace and joy that was once native to us, but is now foreign. The light of his companionship is what dispels the darkness of our isolation, and this is how he overcomes the world, John 16:33. He also contains within himself his own completion of the spiritual journey. His awareness, then, contains that greatest of all prizes, perfect union with God's will. And he wants to give us this awareness. As a result, though we all want companionship, this companion does not feel entirely safe to us. We would prefer that he just hang out with us and watch TV. And he does that, but while he does, we sense that at the other end of the couch is the awareness that could change everything inside us and outside us, and that makes us very nervous. We would rather just keep chillin' on the couch. And so we resist him and even reject him. The specific form this takes is that we don't do what he asks. He tells us that if we want peace, and we all desperately do, we need to want to give it just as much as we want to have it, 6:2. This seems like a tall order. Imagine doing this, for instance, in the middle of an argument. And so we basically ignore it. This seems harmless enough to us, which means we have no idea of the magnitude of this decision to ignore his guidance. Healing depends on our will. It depends on us using our will to follow his will. Without that, we simply cannot be healed. Jesus puts it bluntly, your veto of my will for you makes healing impossible. At this point, you can almost hear our wheels turning. Okay, Jesus, if my will is the key thing here, can't you just take over the controls and crank my will in the right direction? One gets the impression that Jesus has heard this one before, because he has two brilliant answers to it. First, he says that God created our will to be free, to be just as free, in fact, as Jesus's. For Jesus to turn our will in God's direction in opposition to our own free choice would be to violate God's will, and that is something he does not do. Second, he says that the kingdom is freedom and is equality. How then can we get there through Jesus essentially overpowering our free choice? That would be an act of tyranny, and how could we get to freedom through tyranny? It would also imply inequality, and how could we get to equality? How could we get to equality through inequality? If there is in fact no substitute for turning our will in Jesus' direction, how exactly do we do that according to this section? What do we need to accept or do? We need to accept that Jesus himself is literally with us. If you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. We need to let his companionship take away our loneliness. We need to actually do what he says, which means pouring just as much energy into giving peace as into finding peace. And we need to stop moaning for Christ's sake about the need for our will to get up off the couch and do something. Thank you for joining with me. That was the section 3, and now we're reading section 4. Day 121, The Undivided Will of the Sonship, and these are Robert Perry's notes. This is an essay based on the section. Most of this section comes together in a single theme, joining with Jesus. This means joining with his will and reaching for his hand on the journey. This continues yesterday's theme of the need to actively join our will to Jesus' will. This means to willingly follow his guidance for us, which is that we give peace to our brothers. This context tells us what it means to join with his will. Notice all the things that are being said about notice all the things that are said about joining with Jesus when you unite with his will. And I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to read which paragraph it comes from. If you want to pause the video, you can look at that. Your and his joint will becomes so powerful that it is invincible. You see yourself included in God's will, part of his will. You are made whole. You learn that you are not separate from God. You let the love of God shine upon you. You signify your awareness that the will of God is one. You have God's power restored to you. You unite with God. You and he joyfully perform miracles together. You unite without your ego. Since he has no ego, he cannot unite with yours. You therefore renounce the ego in yourself. Your and his united wills become so powerful that nothing can prevail against them. And I'm sorry, my dog's son looks so cute. I have to show you. He just is looking here for love. He just wants some love. He's a loving boy. He's a sweetheart. Isn't he sweet, Bentley? This is from them playing. I'm sorry, totally. They bite each other. It's all in play, but they hurt each other. Say hi a little bit. She needs another eye surgery. Poor girl. She needs another eye surgery, right? Oh, sorry. I hope you like this little reprieve. Say hi. Bentley's like, don't pet her, pet me. Okay, back to the reading. He's not usually like this, so this is unusual for him. Now read that list over again. With each and every item, ask yourself, do I want that? Do you want your and his joint will to become so powerful that it is invincible? Do I want to see myself included in God's will, part of His will? Do I want to be made whole? Do I want to learn that I'm not separate from God? Do I want to let the love of God shine upon me? Do I want to signify my awareness that the will of God is one? Do I want to have God's power restored to me? Do I want to unite with God? Do I want to joyfully perform miracles together? Do I want to unite without my ego, since He has no ego and He cannot unite with mine? Do I want to renounce the ego in myself? Do I want our wills to be united and become so powerful that nothing can prevail against them? Yes, please. If you're like me, you answered with yes to every item, and in some cases with an extremely strong yes. So what do you have to do to have all these things? You have to treat Jesus as an actual companion and then join your will with His, which means do what He says. How do you feel about these two conditions? What objections arise in you? I have always loved the last 3 paragraphs, and they are absolutely gorgeous. You have started along the journey to God with Jesus, and fear has intruded. Why do we get afraid on the journey? It seems to me that these fears mainly fall into 2 categories. We fear the loss of what we had, and we fear the failure of this new journey. Can you think of ways in which these fears have come up for you on the spiritual path? Jesus' diagnosis is, of course, not that these are valid fears, fears to be listened to, but that these are signs of the ego being angered by defeat and hence retaliating. This is the voice of a jilted lover trying his best to undermine your new relationship, sowing doubts in an attempt to worm his way back into your arms. Do you really want this abusive ex-lover who you dumped for the best of reasons to poison your relationship with the perfect partner? Then listen to Jesus' counsel and hear Him speaking to you personally, addressing your specific fears and your unique relationship with Him. I've always had that not good enough, thing going, which is specialness, which is, it's a grand separator. You are invulnerable to its retaliation because I am with you. On this journey, you have chosen me as your companion instead of your ego. Never accord the ego the power to interfere with the journey because it has none. Reach therefore for my hand because you want to transcend the ego. I need you as much as you need me. And that's always been hard for me to grasp. And it's all in the oneness. It's not in specialness, it's in the oneness. So I've always wanted to be special. I've always, considered myself special. It's gotten me in a lot of trouble. Anyway, I love you. Thank you for joining with me. We read day 120, section 3. The freedom of will in chapter 8 and 121, section 4, the undivided will of the sonship. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.